Do you prefer having 1,000 possibilities of something coming on or manifesting, or infinite?
If I'm sat on the beach, I don't feel like I deserve to be there.
Doesn't that take a person who's a workaholic? This is you understanding why all of the bad things happen in your life.
The way that everyone around me perceived me changed.
Sometimes more affirmation and more meditation is not the answer. That's the whole point of having a Vedic astrologer. So this is half Padmasana, and when you put your other foot up here, this is called full Padmasana or just Padmasana. Usually, so in Hinduism, as everything in Hinduism is a science, when you have your legs in full Padmasana, when sitting in full Padmasana, back then, and it's still used today, it's a way to see how healthy your heart is. If you're not able to sit in this asana for a long period of time, then there is an issue with your heart. So, like, a lot of times, the modern day science, they would look back in the past and say, oh, well, they didn't have the technology to be able to measure this and to be able to measure that, but just through nature alone, even something as simple as this, you can see how healthy the heart is. Just by knowing the lightning storm happened on top of a hill, you know that there's going to be a certain flower or an herb that only comes up during that time when after a storm, you know? So, yeah, I would say sit in it more. And it's interesting because not only does it detect to see how healthy your heart is, but also the more you sit in it, the more also helps with your heart. Yeah.
Kind of naturally, you find yourself.
Exactly. You find yourself also sitting with a straight spine, because when you have a bent spine, it produces immature thoughts, and when you have a straight spine, it produces mature thoughts. So whenever you're going to make an important decision, or you're working or doing anything, it's best to keep in the back of your head to keep a straight spine, which is why I either sit like this naturally or I sit like this naturally. But I'm never sitting like this, because then there's less support here, which is more prone to me like sitting forward, even if I don't intend to. So, yeah. But sometimes my legs, depending on what I'm doing, sometimes my leg can get a little numb too. So I do half Padmasana for precaution. Yeah, but I wasn't able to sit like this in the past. Like, before even going to India, I used to like lay down on the floor with my, like, holding up my head like this, or have my legs straight and then have like my hands back. Like, I was never able to actually sit on the floor. But I do recall memories when I was in kindergarten of sitting in what they would say, okay, everyone crisscross applesauce, and everyone would sit down with their legs crossed. It was normal. But somewhere along the line of the lifestyle that everyone was living, I just adapted to not being able to do certain things with my body. It's kind of like, if I use my mother, for example, the only time she ever leaves the house is when she's driving the car. Like, she never leaves the house to walking anywhere, running anywhere. It's always and that's for like majority of people, right? They get out the house, they get in the car, they drive somewhere. They consider running errands and doing things at the store or their destination, unless they're doing something that's going to be like really actually physically active. But they consider just hopping in the car, going somewhere, and running errands and completing tasks as, oh, I did a lot today. When in reality, they just been sitting like a weird pose all day via chair, which is always interesting to see, like, where chairs came from in the first place.
With everything, with the forks, with the chairs, with the beds, with everything.
Bed makes people not be able to be grounded, because there's a space between the person and the floor. Thus, not only that, there's also a mattress. So the effect that the gravity has on that person reduces when they're sleeping on a bed, thus them being less grounded, which is why it's recommended to sleep on the floor, because then the impact that gravity is having on the body allows you to not only have better sleep, not only to have an actual straight back and body, but to also be grounded when you're sleeping. That's also part of the whole point of sleeping. It's not what a lot of people use it nowadays is just to escape reality when they're not eating or working or entertaining themselves.
What's that yoga pose called when you're just lying flat on the floor?
That's called Shivasana. Luckily, you're asking me the yoga poses that I remember the name of.
How many asanas is there?
I don't even...
Not a specific.
In terms of... Because the thing is that there are 8 limbs of yoga. And so not every single limb of yoga has asanas, meaning like body poses. Some of them are more focused on pranayamas. Some of them are more focused on like a little bit of everything. And it also depends on which lineage you're practicing from, which is called sampradayas. Means that, like, if you take someone from a Krishna consciousness community or sampradaya, and then a Shiva consciousness sampradaya, one may say, putting bhasma, which is like the 3 lines I put across my head every day, is the vibhuti or holy ash. It won't liberate you, but in the Shiva sampradaya, it will say that will liberate you. And then that's where, like, even gurus themselves contradict each other, because in Hinduism we know that there are many truths. There's not just one truth, like this is what it is, which again makes Hinduism or everything in India so user-friendly for everyone, because it's a personal journey and there's a space for anyone to practice. Like, okay, you don't want to like wake up early, all right, there's something for you. You don't want to stop eating meat, okay, there's something for you. Like, there's something for everyone. It's not so like clear cut.
It's people can choose what's the word, who they worship. I'm not using the word worship, but people
They can get when the English Empire invaded and did everything they did in India, they were putting stone posts because they were creating roads. And even back then, there were people that would go up to the stone posts and they'll start pouring water on the stone posts and worshiping it. Because you can get something as simple as a rock that you feel connected to and start worshiping it. Like, because as we say, like, Soham Asmi, even when I worship, I am Him. I'm God. I am that. So yeah, it makes it very open for anyone to practice any form, no matter how little or how much they practice. Even with a little bit of practice, they get so much of the benefits that comes from doing the practice.
Because Hinduism didn't start out as a religion.
No. The whole ism part of it, like Hinduism, it's a westernized term, but in order for Hinduism or Sanatana Hindu Dharma to not become extinct or irrelevant, they had to
Adapt or die.
They had to adapt because of all the genocide that was going on, which is the genocide that happens today with everything, like in all cultures, in the name of modernization and having a easier life. But in exchange, people in those modern civilizations, like in the West and even in the East as well, are the ones that are killing themselves the most, or taking the drugs the most, or eating the most, or have the most unhealthiest lifestyle. So they did a very good job, and they're still doing a very good job with secretly committing genocide in the name of convenience. So, yeah. But how would you grew up in the UK?
Ireland.
Ireland
till I was 16, and then over to the UK, for the last 10 years.
How was your childhood in Ireland?
Really good, really, yeah. I feel very privileged that I think most of my lasting, let's say, my trauma experiences, I know everything is implanted from early. However, I feel that the problems that are occurring in my life now have been over the period of the last 5 years, let's say, as opposed to my childhood. I know that we're imprinted from young, but my childhood, I have no bad memories, only positive memories. And I can see certain tendencies that, like people pleasing, these kind of things that have stemmed from there. However, yeah, I feel very, very blessed to have had the childhood I had. It was a small village, like grass in the middle of the road, Quinn it's called.
Would you recommend anyone to go and live there?
My unbiased opinion is, yeah, it is the most beautiful part of Ireland. It's on the west coast, so everyone always goes over to Dublin, or the capital city, as everyone does when they visit a new country. But the west coast, it's incredible. It's beautiful.
So you mentioned traumas. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so this is actually what I wanted to get into. I wanted to talk a bit on how money, or we can get into that, but it's all in the same thing, so I'm trying to figure out how to identify each separate element. I can see how things that have happened to me in the past, and it might even just be one thought, one thing that happens one day that creates that version of reality, and then that extrapolates out to my current view on reality, let's say, or my perspective, and then everything that happens, it's going through that lens of that trauma. And if we want to, just for some context, define trauma as anything that's happened that's caused a lasting impact, or something that stays, basically. I can notice these lasting impacts, and the reason I define it as that is it's not traumatic per se. The stuff that I can identify that has caused these lasting changes or impacts, they're in no way traumatic as to, like, in comparison to what's happening to other people. And I know every situation is relative.
So why did you mention trauma?
For that reason, that even if it's not a traumatic experience, any experience, like if you live the most sheltered life ever, you will still have experiences that will shape the way that you navigate your life going forward after those experiences. So you're a different person after the experience as you were before. And we tend to classify that as a trauma because it leaves a lasting impact. And I haven't come up with a better definition for...
I can give you a new word.
Please.
Incompletion.
Incompletion. How so?
Because when you're complete, you wouldn't have past experiences still affecting you in present. So there is an incompletion that occurred. So at the moment, you are incomplete about something because you don't feel whole. So can you elaborate on what you feel incomplete about? What are you incomplete about? Or what was the incompletion that happened in the past, that you feel that happened in the past, that's still having a lasting impression on you in the present?
So my current dilemma is that if I'm sat on the beach, I don't feel like I deserve to be there, let's say. Even if I've just spent 8 hours working, I sit down on the beach and I always feel like there's more to be done, like I'm doing as opposed to being. And I feel like, I guess you'd call it unworthiness, or I'm not enough as I am. I have to achieve something to be allowed to relax, to be all right as just myself. Like, I don't feel what I am, just being me, is enough.
So you consider that a bad thing?
Most definitely, yeah. Because
how come?
Because it means I can't relax effectively. It means I find it very difficult to switch off.
Why do you want to switch off?
I want to...
What do you gain out of switching off or relaxing?
I want to feel like enough as myself without having to go and do something every single day to feel that feeling.
How about this sentence? What if because you feel like you are enough, you don't want to switch yourself off because you're the only one who can do what you want to do? Before we get into the angle of immediately pointing fingers at the things that are making you feel bad, let's first look at why are you titling it as bad in the first place? Do you feel like you have a drive to like conquer and to like conquer a lot in the world?
Yes, most definitely.
So doesn't that take a person who's a workaholic? Not a person who's sitting at the beach when there's a bunch of other people out there that are right now working and not taking a day off. Now, it's understandable. If you're still taking the time to spend with, from time to time, family, 'cause obviously we travel, with your partner, and there's no kids involved, for example, I don't see the issue. Why not take all the time when you don't even have the kids running around to, hypothetically speaking, right? Because a person can always just hire a nanny so that they can work when they need to. But hypothetically speaking, who told you that you need to turn off? That's the real question. Who told you that you needed to turn off? Like, was it always something that was an issue in the past, that you were maybe like hyper, or you were always super active but you were told to calm down, or you told yourself to calm down because you saw how people was looking at you? I don't know. It doesn't even have to start when you were a child. It could have started when you were a teenager. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, COVID was when I first realized this version of me, let's say, this workaholic, because I was a party guy, so I was always busy, I was doing something. I didn't have much idle time, so I guess, and I always had the next step planned for me. What the school system does, the next step is always there ahead, so you don't even have to think about what you're going to do because it's already outlined for you. And I guess then when I graduated and I didn't have the next step planned was when I completely changed as a person, because it was then up to me and I actually stopped and thought for the first time in my life, okay, what do I actually want to do, as opposed to what am I doing? And just not
That exciting?
It was exciting, and also it made me just go, what the fuck? Like, my entire version of reality shifted in a, maybe, let's say, a 2-year period, and my whole perspective on everything changed, and with that I drastically changed, and then the way that everyone around me perceived me changed, and I found I had to retreat. I don't have to do anything. I found myself retreating, trying to figure out how to navigate in this new version of reality, let's say.
When you say retreat, what do you mean retreat?
As if I was like a caterpillar going through a transformation, and I had to take some time, or if you want to call it the hermit phase, or my time where I was evolving. However, going back to what you last said, that frame, I'd never thought of it like that. I always boxed it off as being negative, that I have this drive or urge to keep doing stuff. And maybe I won't have it forever, and maybe it is just in this period, and this is the season, this is the season for I don't want to use the word grinding, but for pushing forward, for pressing. And instead of trying to change myself to be someone who isn't doing that, accept it, flow with it, and utilize it.
Yeah, it could have caused some friction. It's not a bad thing wanting to relax, but you need to like have an understanding as to what you're getting out of relaxing, because you may be trying to do something that you believe or think that I need to do this, but deep inside you probably feel like I'm not getting anything done out of this. I'm not doing what I actually want to be doing out of this. Yes. So, but it's interesting because you said that, well, one thing I want to mention, in Ayurveda, there are different stages in our life. There's first the Kapha period, stage of our life, Pitta, and then Vata. So in the beginning, Kapha period of our life, we're all more heavy, clumsy, we sleep a lot, we have a lot of baby fat, we eat a lot, we cry a lot. If you take all of those qualities and put it on an adult, you're just going to see them as lazy. But kapha are related to those things. Kapha is heavy, it's oily, it's thick, it's slow, right? So in the beginning years, it is also kapha that's most associated with emotions, which is why the child is needing so much emotional and physical support as they're getting older. Once they become adult, they're in their pitta stage of their life. That's where they have all the fire, all that energy, all of that like plans, goals, wanting to go out and like conquer and do things. And then as they get older, that's when things become a bit more colder, a bit more thinner with their body, and naturally because of that, because things become a bit more brittle, they kind of slow down a little bit, just a little bit, depending on the person. There's some people who slow down a lot and they become a couch potato. There's some people who just slow down a little bit, but they're still as fit as a fox. And that is in the vata stage. So you are in your pitta stage. We are in that pitta stage where it is natural for us to have goals and wanting to go out and conquer and looking for the next thing to do. But do you still have, like, I guess the original question I have is, where did you get the idea that you needed to relax? Because I'm sure there's certain things you do when it comes to work that's relaxing for you, but just in your own way. It doesn't have to be what's considered relaxing on an Instagram ad or something like that, you know? Like for me, when I'm making my next music video and I'm editing the video for like a YouTube channel, I find that relaxing, even though it's some form of work, because I'm doing something that I really enjoy. And I can just sit there and just like edit for like a whole hour, no problem, and get it done. So who told you, or what made you think that that was the way you needed to relax?
Yeah, I'm the same as you. I sit down to work, and that's my happy place a lot of the time. I sit there and I can be working for hours and I don't feel drained. I feel, if anything, sometimes it fills me up.
And it's very fortunate to have that, because a lot of people who needs to kick themselves in the butt just to go ahead and work. And for you, it's very natural. And when it comes to relaxing, still, like, where'd you get the idea from?
I guess it's just imprinted on me from, like you say, like from society or from what I feel broken for not wanting to relax.
When was okay, how about this? When was the first time you tried to relax? When you realized all of this and then you tried to do something in the name of relaxing?
I think it was when I was traveling South America and I would find myself on beaches with nothing to do, feeling like there's something to do, and maybe seeing other people there just chilling and thinking.
And like, oh, I saw this on an ad on a train once of someone sitting at the beach looking at the sunset. I wonder how that feels, you know?
Yeah, so I guess it's just from feeling broken myself, or feeling like something wasn't right because other people do it and I can't seem to do it myself.
It's also nice to do things naturally. Like me, if someone asks me to do something and if I do not feel like I want to do it, I will not do it. I wouldn't do it out of, doesn't matter who they are, I would not do it. Because, for example, when I was in Brighton, that specific scenery of the cliff and all the way down of the ocean and the abyss at the edge of the world was enough for me to sit there and just want to gaze at it for hours. And that came natural. But for here, for example, when I'm at the beach, I just want to play frisbee. And I find that relaxing. I'll play frisbee for hours. I will go in, like, I'll hop in the ocean. I'll do some recordings. But I never get that natural feeling yet to just gaze at the edge of this ocean. Although, on the other side of the city, where the ocean is, there are a lot of mountains across. And that ends up, I was speaking about it with some friends 2 weeks ago. I was like, when I see those mountains across in the ocean, and I just see these big, huge mountains going across, I just feel like I want to stare at the whole scenery the whole entire time, and it comes natural. So sometimes you're going to be in a place where you're going to feel natural, likely driven to relax or take time at a specific scenery, and sometimes you're going to be at a completely different location and you won't feel that way. You might feel like there's something else. So that's also part of you just going along with the flow. Basically, when people say that, they're thinking, oh, I'll just do whatever is coming to me. No, it's more like just going along with whatever you're feeling with at that moment, while still having the same destination. So at the end of the day, if you plan on getting this and this and this done, but you want to go ahead and take time naturally to gaze at the mountains and the ocean, then you can still do that, despite knowing that I'm still going to get these things done at the end of the day, and know that, oh, I was able to spend some time relaxing while still getting those things done. And I mention this specifically because I was questioning about the mountains and the ocean on the other side of the city. I was thinking, do I like that scenery because I grew up in the mountains in New York? Like, my town, Peekskill, we live like on the highest point of the mountains in that town. But all the way at the bottom, there's a river, like a river from north all the way down south past New York City. And right across are just a ton of mountains. And I always admire that view because it's quiet, you have the water, but when you have these big ocean, and same thing when I was in Lake Tahoe for the first time in 2018 or 2017, I was astonished by the mountains because of how big and far away they look, because of how big they are, that it almost feels like you're looking at a painting because they don't look reachable. And then you have the whole lake of Lake Tahoe right in front of it, right across. So I was thinking about the other day, I wonder if I like the view of mountains because I grew up around mountains, or if I just naturally like that. And if I didn't grow up in a town of mountains, then would I still like that view? And I may never really specifically know the answer. It may be a very simple answer. It may be a very extensive answer. Who knows if previous life it supports me liking the scenery of mountains, or if it's because I grew up there. Whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. I just know that I like the scenery, and whenever I see it, I sit for a bit and I gaze. So it should just be natural like that. You should never feel like you need to force yourself to relax. If you feel more driven to do your work, then that's good for you. Your future, your future family. Yeah. You'll have time to wind down in a long distance future. There's no need to do that now.
Yeah. And I think the shift in, like we were speaking about before, the shift in what my approach to work has now changed. And that feels better because it feels more aligned. I feel like before I was squeezing it too tight or trying to impose myself on the grand plan more than I needed to. That I was seeing the next step, but then wanting to figure out every muscle movement towards that instead of just walking.
Right.
And that relates back to what we were talking earlier on the money. So I've spent the last few years trading currencies, and I believe that we all have our own relationship with the money energy, let's say, and you probably know this better than anyone, that once we engage in that relationship, if we don't treat it as a relationship, then it will cause problems, because it is a relationship. There is a give and a take on both sides. And for many years I wasn't viewing it as that. I was viewing it as the logical and what it looked like on paper without thinking about the rest of it. And from that, squeezing it so tightly that I was only letting it drip through. And it was just manifesting in all different ways that I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing, but the emotions I was associating to it could never let anything more than what was coming through come through. No matter what I did, no matter if I ticked every box that I was supposed to tick, because of the fact that it was a relationship and I wasn't doing my part from that stance of it. My emotional state wasn't what it should have been for the relationship to flow. I went and I looped for years and years and years. And I've noticed the pattern that every time I let go of it and stop focusing so much on exactly how it's going to work, the openness lets it flow. And that's part of the reason why we've completely switched up our strategy for everything. And it now feels better inside, more aligned. On paper, it looks like if you were an investor in the company, you would think, what the fuck are you doing? Like, do not do this. This is the worst, this is the most riskiest, worst idea. However, that's looking at it from one side. The other side of the coin is the exact opposite. And I cannot deny that it feels nothing but right to approach it like this. And yeah, do you have any experience, or how have you navigated around this question towards imposing yourself, doing what's necessary, let's say receiving a download and then going to act upon it, and then trying to decide what the right steps to put in place? Because I found the steps that I was putting involved on where the money was going to come from was putting limitations on the possibilities of where the flow could come from. Does that make sense?
I usually tell my clients that do you prefer having 1,000 possibilities of something coming on or manifesting, or infinite? And if you want it to be infinite, as in every single possible way it can come, then you just need what I call surrender manifestation, or just let it go and work on other things to make it happen. Because when it comes to manifesting anything you want, it requires your participation to manifest your ideal life, your ideal reality. And especially when it comes to, it doesn't matter if it's money or the lifestyle you want or your health or anything. When you are manifesting, so let's look at the logical way you were thinking about it originally. You as a CEO of your own brand, your own company, and everything that you're doing. In Hinduism, we say that it's important to celebrate every step of the process. Every step you celebrate. You don't celebrate once you're at the goal. You celebrate every step of the way, every step you've made a decision for the next step, all the way down to the goal. Because in Hinduism, they say that life is a celebration. You should be celebrating everything. So, like, you go ahead, you do a launch, celebrate. You completed the launch, celebrate. You got better results, celebrate. You end up getting like an idea that you think is a better idea, celebrate. You should celebrate everything. Just don't celebrate when you reach the goal. Yeah. Because every step is like, you should never discredit the steps that's taking you to the end goal. And another thing is that a lot of people end up with inaction because they're too worried about those steps, right? You can say that. It's from the idea that when they are trying to manifest something, a lot of times some of my clients will come up with excuses like, I don't have this, I don't have that. And this is where the participation part comes into play. It's like when my guru says, you just do whatever you can do and I'll move mountains for you. You just have to show up and participate. If a person is sitting there and they're doing like more affirmation and more meditation, and sometimes more affirmation and more meditation is not the answer. Sometimes you actually taking actions, whatever you can. People say, well, I can't do this and this and this, and they'll point out all the things they can't do rather than just getting excited about the things they can do, like today.
Hmm. Yeah, it's dancing between those. That is the dance. That's the line you got to walk, deciding when.
Well, a lot of times it's not even that the person is dancing in between, though. They're just dancing in their head.
Yeah.
You know, they're just dancing in their head because the option is there for them to execute whatever they could today.
Yeah.
And like, for example, my first time going to India, the moment I knew that I can go for my third eye so I can start using it, I literally just immediately dropped everything and just put all my energy, hours, everything straight to going to India. Like there were times when I was working for 3 days straight, no sleep, and like working like 3 different places, overnight, go home, then show up in the morning at the next place, then in the afternoon, and then repeat, just to make it happen.
Yeah. Do what's
And
necessary.
it's worth it because right now, for a lot of people, I'll say for all average human beings who don't have any spiritual practice or anything, who is in their prime ages, they have the superpower to get hurt, to sacrifice sleep, and not feel it, to do so many different things. They should be using this time to put all of their energy towards something specific that they want to manifest, because they won't be able to do that later.
Because our energy is more powerful as we're younger.
Two different things. One is, for a lot of average human beings, their energy will decline. But the most important thing is that when they get older and there's that feeling of, I didn't do any of these things I wanted to do, they'll use that as guilt to just add as another reason why they can't do what they want to do, whatever they want to manifest, or the partner they want, or the kind of work they want to manifest, or business, or whatever. And a lot of people do that today. I call that SDHD.
SDHD. What's the S?
Self-denial, self-hatred, and self-doubt. SDHD.
So as we get older, do you see it as that because the energy declines, it's because we're creating blockages within ourselves, it's stopping the wheels from moving so much that less can flow through? So the same amount of energy is coming to us, but less is flowing through us.
I'll say that there is a decline. For majority, there is a decline because between the age of being born and then to the age of 21, whatever cognitions that are created during that time by the individual gets solidified. So it makes it harder to take care of those incompletions after the age of 21. But even if they don't dedicate time towards taking care of those incompletions and they end up using it as... So the number one issue that actually just came up, the number one issue is that they use it to identify themselves. So they end up seeing themselves as a finished product rather than seeing themselves as a seed of possibility of being able to become whatever they want whenever they want. Them seeing themselves as a finished product, you hear the common phrase, this is just who I am.
Yeah.
This is just how I am.
Yeah.
Oh, I won't do this because every time when I end up doing that, there's always some kind of person like that. You know, and then, I mean, that's a little bit normal. Like if I was to look into someone's Vedic astrology chart and I go over the life foundation of their chart, naturally I'm seeing you're prone to experience these kind of patterns because your body is your Vedic astrology chart. Your body is your chart. So that means it's not so much about being concerned of what does it say in my chart? What is my chart manifesting? It's that this body that you're possessing is manifesting all of these experiences, places, and events in your life. And by working on your biology, it gives you the opportunity to change what people would consider as fate to make it their own. And that's, a lot of people use astrology for information. I use astrology for transformation, because once I see what are the things that are very supporting in their chart and what's not so supporting in their chart, then I can tell them, focus on these things in order to get to where you want to go. If people are only looking for information, what does that mean? They're not really looking to change anything in their life. They're just looking to learn more about, this is who I am, and add more to their identity. Exactly. That's why whenever I start with a reading, I'm always educating in the beginning, so that there's some detoxification that happens from the Western astrology. That way I can replace it with some powerful cognitions that are given in Vedic astrology. So that a person can end up seeing, okay, these things are really supported in my life. Like, for example, there was someone who commented on my recent video on TikTok, and they said they replied on a video. My video was a reply to their reply on my video, where I was speaking about Mars in the 7th house and how the kind of partner that they will get may have lots of passion and energy towards eventually having children, because that increases the sexuality in the relationship. And they comment, I don't really want kids, man, with a kind of like downward face, like disappointed face. And I replied to the video yesterday and I said, this comment is not the kind of comment that tells me that you don't want to have kids. This kind of comment tells me that you want to have kids, but you're not wanting kids for powerless reasons. I won't say for the wrong reasons, because there's technically no right or wrong reason. But if it makes you powerless, then it's wrong. So that's like the interesting thing. Like, this is a perfect example of many truths in Hinduism. There is no right or wrong reason. But if you're looking at it from the other angle of it's making you feel powerful or powerless, then there's a right or wrong. If it's making you feel powerless, it is wrong. If it's making you feel powerful, it is right. So if a person is not wanting to have children because they've been in bad relationships in the past, or based on all the stuff they're exposed to on the internet, they're afraid of raising a child alone, they're afraid of not finding someone as a right partner, or maybe they just didn't have the best relationship figure, like their parents or someone in their life, as a model, because everyone has a model as per how they are in their relationships. If they don't have an appropriate model, then what ends up happening is they end up finding relationships in the wrong places. They end up getting traumatized. Yeah, and then they end up saying, oh, relationships are not for me, or I don't want children, or I don't want a partner. But I do. Like, I have so many women who's like, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, speaking to your girlfriends, they'll say, no, I don't want children. But then majority of the time, like, there'll be some other time, all of a sudden they're with a person, and like, or like they say, oh, I don't want a relationship, and then they're with a person. They're like, oh, I thought you didn't want a relationship. Oh yeah, but it just happened, and that's an issue, because now you didn't consciously create it. You're taking butterfly moments and choosing that, identifying that as, oh yeah, I'm conscious. I'm making a conscious decision to be in a relationship now because this person came. But this person, prior to you having that quote unquote clarity, you've manifested this person from the space of confusion, because you're keeping yourself confused, because you're saying that you don't want, but you do want. So then when they end up getting that person and then things go south, then it validates the feeling they had prior to getting to that relationship, and then they're just like, see, that's why I shouldn't, and then that goes with everything. That goes with any aspects of a person's life, not only relationships. It can be like with money, it could be with traveling, it can be with like trusting yourself. Like, the moment something fails, you're just like, oh, I knew it wasn't for me, or I knew it was gonna happen. And a person shouldn't. One of the best ways to remove obstacles in your life is to see every time when an obstacle arises, see it as an opportunity to make the next powerful decision in your life. If you always see it as an opportunity to have a breakthrough, then where did the obstacles go? There's no such thing as obstacle. There never exists. That means that it's an opportunity for you to have a breakthrough. And you will always win if your destination is the same. If your destination is to get X, Y, and Z, no matter how many obstacles come up, after having a breakthrough and getting through the obstacle, if your destination is the same, not only does obstacles no longer exist for you, but now you can never lose. You are always winning if your destination is the same. If an obstacle comes up and your destination changes, the plan can change. That's different. It happens via obstacles sometimes. But if the destination changes, then you lost.
So where do you stand on the free will debate? Is it predetermined, or do we have the ability, or should we even try to decide our fate, our future?
Free will does exist, but no free will also exists. As I said, like in Hinduism, many truths. So, for example, if you were to take a person, let's use like a Vedic astrology example. A person, I see that all of these things are there in their chart, right? Whether they were just born, I'll be telling the parents the same thing, or once they're 20 years old, I'll be telling them the same information. Once they are understanding how their life was programmed, how they programmed their own life as they were prior to landing on this planet in that body, when they understand, it gives them leverage in their life. If a person does not understand, they're bound by the default. Getting it? Yeah. So it's kind of like this. I love this example. I haven't used it in a long time. Let's say there is a downward slope. This is you understanding why all of the bad things happen in your life. But as a result of you understanding all the different things that are happening in your life, because you gain leverage, now you have a leveling playing field automatically, just by understanding. But again, as a result of having a leveling playing field, then it starts going up. Because now it's almost like being given tools to be able to manifest your reality that's best suited for you. So like in a person's chart, I can see if a person needs more visualization, if a person needs more isolation time, if a person needs just more planning.
And this is related to where specific stars or houses are on their chart. So relating into this, which house is specifically related to money or to occupation? I guess there's one for each. Is there?
So occupation is going to be a bit more complex because you have more that's involved when it comes to occupation. Though that's called I don't remember the name of it, but it's based on the first, fifth, and ninth house, because first house is self, and it also shows me like how your head operates. How do you operate in your head?
Your own view of yourself.
Yeah, but also like all the things that they attract. So also how they tend to think. Okay. Then the fifth house is like their education.
How they should be educated?
You can also see that, but I see what they're most attracted to when it comes to with education.
Or like their modality of learning, or?
Yeah, you can say also that as well. And then the ninth house is higher education. Both have, so like for example, fifth house is ancient knowledge, ninth house is higher knowledge. So going overseas to learn a completely different culture, being in isolation, going on pilgrimage, going on long distances, learning from a guru. Because first house, would be the house. No, ninth house would be the house of mentors, teachers, and gurus. Fifth house is like, you could say high school, pre-college. Ninth house is like university and higher, right? But originally the ones that, based on all of those three, because ninth house is also luck. So like some people are unlucky when it comes to getting into the college they want, right? They never get accepted, or their grades are always, there's all these different factors. So with occupation is a bit more complex. What was the other one? Financial, it's a little less complex, but it can get complex. So you have the karma that you're here to fulfill in society, which is seen in the 10th house. You have liquidation, your liquid gains that you get from the actions you do in society, which is in the 11th house. And then you have speculative gains in the 5th house, which is like more for when a person is doing anything where they're putting a certain amount, not knowing how much they're going to get back. So in the 5th house, seeing like with trading and businesses, like for example, if an artist get a bunch of equipment to make art, they don't know how much they're going to get back from selling that art, but they're hoping that it's going to be either even or more than what they invested in for that art. And then you have like trading, for example, because it's speculative gains, it's up and down, you put in, you don't know how much you're going to get back. And it's very interesting because in the 5th house, I'll use trading for example, because I know it's related with you. You have trading. Trading requires you to sit a lot. The 5th house is associated with the spine, and also your stomach. But the 5th house is also associated with children, and it has been seen that the more you sit and the less active you are, the less sperm count you have. You see how everything is like linked to each other. Just by that house alone, you can see how and what affects a person in what way. You know, that they may end up having stomach issues, which is right next to the house where they have intestines, and then they have the spine and things like this. So obviously there's no one set way to be able to say, oh yeah, if you have this, then it's going to show that you have money coming in your life. Because yeah, it's multidimensional. Like you have aspects, which are planets aspecting those different houses. You have conjunction, which is planets or grahas sharing houses with each other. Then you have other kind of aspects. Then you have the strength of that house. You have to also understand like the karmas that exist in that house, dushtana houses. Like there's so much, but that's the whole point of having a Vedic astrologer. Because unless a person is dedicating a lot of study time and sitting time, like when I first started becoming a Vedic astrologer and studying from my teacher, I'm still in school to this day, I would start from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, the whole like half of 2020, until I was able to start reading charts. Until then, I was in class every day, like that.
Yeah. So in terms of Vedic and tropical, do you see them as coexisting, that they both have validity and they both impact us?
I don't know anything about tropical.
You don't know anything about tropical? Okay.
I know about West.
Western. Okay, yeah. Let's classify it as Western then.
Well, Western astrology, it's very interesting because people use the successful results that they get from Western astrology to validate Western astrology. But I can take this leaf and say I can do you a reading, throw it up in the air, it lands a specific way, and be able to tell you some very accurate information just through intuition. So then that's where there's like a thin line between them using that to validate Western astrology, when Western astrology is based on a lot of false things. Because first of all, they use the Western calendar, which is not used for astrology. It's used it's created for economic purposes. It's a stagnant calendar. In the East, celebrations are always happening every year on a completely different date. Sometimes a completely different month,
Yeah, but how about the equinox always happening on the same date? March 21st is always going to be spring equinox. June 21st is always going to 24th is always going to be the 21st. 21st or 24th?
Yeah, but who told you that it's the equinox on that day? Because, for example, a lot of people are celebrating their birthdays on the wrong day. Your birthday is not based on the sun returning on that specific date on the Western calendar. Your birthday is when the moon is returning under that nakshatra, that star that you were born under. That's your actual birthday.
Correct,
and your birthday can start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and end 4 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. Not necessarily like midnight. So even though, hypothetically speaking, the equinox may be returning on approximately the 21st, hypothetically, because they're saying this is equinox day. But did you check to see the phase of the moon to actually know if equinox specifically happened and specifically what time?
Yeah, so I can't personally say that I've measured it, but I do know that people do measure it, and that it is consistently, the equinox does, the sun's rotation over us does consistently reach these points of equilibrium on these specific dates. So that tells me that there's consistency in that form of it. So I also see what you're saying, that categorizing everything and putting it into this box that's like a fucking plug and play. Like here's your sign, you can have this.
There is a form to it. Because it's taken originally from that. Like if you look at Monday is Moon Day. That's the day when Shiva is worshipped. Tuesday is Mangala. And then you have like a day like Thursday, for example, which is Shukracharya Day, Venus. That's the reason why people go on their most dates on a Friday night. And Venus is Karaka, means significator of the 11th house, which is liquidation, which is why majority of people get paid on a Friday. And if they don't get paid on a Friday, they get paid on a Thursday, which is Jupiter, which is also known as wealth. So, yes, there is validity to it. But when we're specifically speaking about using a Western calendar, I'm speaking about calculating a person's chart. Because there's a reason why you can go to 10 different softwares and get completely different results. Yes, there are some things that are more reliable than others as per planets, which the Western calendar is based on. So when you're talking about the sun, for example, the sun is very reliable. The sun has always been on time. Yeah. But the other side of it is that just because the sun is always on time, and the Western calendar recognizes that, thus, which is why it's associated with the sun, doesn't mean that it can be used for Western astrology. Yeah. It just means that, yes, it's aligned with the sun. Yeah. But it doesn't, the Western calendar cannot, just because it aligned with the sun doesn't mean it could be used to calculate someone's chart. Yes. Because different results will end up coming up.
Yeah, I think the issue comes from grouping them as one or defining one as the other, that the precession of the equinox is occurring in the stars above us, and then the sun and the wandering stars or the planets are also on the equilibrium, let's say. They are rotating at a specific time or precessing, and the stars are also rotating around us. So if you're trying to say which one, like Western astrology is always going to say that Vedic is out and vice versa, because they'll only be in line maybe once every, 24,000, 25,000 years once the precession completes. So only at certain points are they lining up, but both are impacting us at the same time. And I think that's where the main problems come from. It's trying to say, is one there or the other? And I do agree with you that the vast majority of the problems and the disregard in astrology comes from the box that we put it all into Western astrology and say this is that, because it doesn't line up if you're looking at it from both of them at the same time. Does that make sense?
Well, there are several things. Vedic astrology has a large scriptural reference background text from who knows how long back. Western astrology does not. Also, Western astrology is new. new in the sense where someone can say, "Oh, I was there in the 1800s." That's baby. Like even the U.S. is baby. What was there before the U.S. before social media became popular and Western astrology became popular? It wasn't there before.
Okay, wait.
And then you also have to like figure out like why are they pushing it so much?
Okay, yeah, I do want to clarify that when I talk about Western astrology, I'm talking about the difference between the precession of the stars above us and the sun's rotation, not Western astrology per se. That's saying that they're in different precessions, that the sun is in precession differently than the stars are. So maybe by me terming it Western, I'm not actually talking about Western. I'm talking about the problem arises from grouping the sun's movement in with the stars' movement, that they're both moving on different rotations, let's say. Does that make sense?
Yes, but what is the problem you're linking it to?
The fact that people are talking about X when it's actually Y. Like we're talking about it being Western or let's say tropical or Vedic, and saying one of them, there is only one way. When in reality, if the planets and the sun are following a specific procession and the stars are also following a different procession, if we're trying to put them both into one box, it's neither, because it's both, if that makes sense. So they're both coexisting, both having impacts on us.
Right. That makes sense. There's also another aspect to it. There's a lot of ancient civilizations that died out, that no longer exist, that's no longer manifesting their capabilities that they used to be able to in the past. So you look like in Hinduism, for example, in India, there are still temples that are still floating off the ground by this much. There are still yogis that you can go to, and they can just materialize you a rudraksha right in front of you in your hand, and you can take back home with you. In the street, you're not buying it from any museum. It's literally, it's still a living science. Yeah. So when you take like Ayurveda, for example, versus the allopathic medicine, allopathic medicine is also useful for like a lot of emergencies and stuff.
What's allopathic medicine?
Western medicine. But when you look at Ayurveda, it covers all that plus more, because it dived into the human consciousness, taking care of the consciousness level of a person, not just the physical.
Yeah, Dari, what we were talking about earlier, what was the word? The something dynamics, the one where you're studying the metaphysical, how to cure ailments, let's say, from the metaphysical, as opposed to solely focusing on the body or solely focusing on what medicine you need to take.
Right. So when we're speaking about like the example you were giving about like tropical and Vedic, I know that Vedic astrology has dived so deep to the point of even being able to explain why I have 5 fingers and not 6, all the way down to that level, like all that kind of scriptural reference. I don't know how deep tropical goes. I never studied it. I never,
Yeah, okay. Again, maybe I need to really clarify
meaning that they're coexisting.
Yeah.
Yes, they're coexisting, just like
labels that we put on them, like tropical and Vedic. Let's look at it as the sun's precession and the star's precession. That we are now labeling them as Vedic and tropical, and that's the problem with what's happening with Western. It's putting the labels, putting the names, and even
But what's the difference between the two?
Let's call tropical the sun's rotation, and the Vedic as the.
But Vedic astrology there's also the sun in the chart.
Of course. But the problems arise between the two when they're out of sync, and they're only in sync once every 25,000 years, and it's because we're only focusing on one or the other. I don't really know how to.
So the thing is that the reason why the sun is made so important in modern society is because, and this is all explained. Like I get where you're coming from, but sun represents father. It represents male figure. It represents male energy. And majority of the world is dominated with a lot of male energy, naturally. Even majority of people are right-handed. The left side of the brain, which is the masculine part of the brain, controls the right side of the body. Majority of people in the world are right-handed. So they did a really good job with making people focus more on the masculine aspect. It's so masculine that they convince, women to become men. You know, so again, that's where it becomes a little like you have to like really look and see like why that side is focusing so much on sun when originally you look at sun represents the soul. No one is out here acting based on their soul. Otherwise, they'll be in some ashram somewhere or something, meditating and burning away their karma as fast as possible. Everyone act more based on of their mind desires, which is why we use either a person's moon chart or their moon chart, birth chart is basically it's the same.
So it's like, yes, the way the society is structured now has us focused more on the sun's rotation, on the masculine, on that electric energy, as opposed to the grand feminine,
because even if you look at like yes, and it links back to everything else we just covered. If you go over, the calendar, it's so associated with sun, but then like what's dominating so much in the world? Okay, well that dominant energy, what does it make forcing people to feel like they have no choice but to do? Work 9 to 5 and work that structure of the Western calendar. You work Monday to Friday, you're off on week, like it's all set up that way. And then that's where you have to like start looking into like agendas and stuff, because it's a bit more deeper than just them coexisting. They can coexist, but one has a deeper, it has more depth to it in scriptural reference in order to give better readings, more useful readings for people. Because what I see a lot is people, they learn a little bit of astrology, and then and then the sun sign, again, that's a person's soul. Like even if you look in Latin, sun translated into Latin is SOL, soul. And what is the color of that? Orange. What do monks wear? Orange. It's all aligned. All of them wear orange because it's a reminder that they're here to just burn as much karma as possible and to act based on their soul, their atma.
So in a way, it's like the that Indian adage where is it the 5 blind men are touching the elephant and trying to imagine what the elephant looks like. One of them's touching the trunk, one of them's touching the tail, one of them's touching the leg, and they all have completely different viewpoints on what an elephant looks like. And in reality, they're all right, but none of them are right at the same time. Right. So by zooming in and focusing on one aspect, we lose the reality or the clarity that the all or the zooming out gives us. So by focusing on Western, on tropical, on just the sun's rotation, on focusing on our sun sign, let's say, we lose all that the rest of astrology has to show us and teach us about.
Technically, that term doesn't even exist, my sun sign, because the sun doesn't get a zodiac sign associated at the time that you're born. It's more like my sun is in the first house in Leo. That's more of the accurate way, because people are, when they say my sun sign, then they're associating themselves with that sign, and then again they're losing their whole entire chart. Because then people are like, oh, I dislike Pisces, I dislike Virgos, or this and that, or how is Leo men? And it's funny because that doesn't exist. There's 12 houses because there's 12 zodiac signs. Every single house have a zodiac sign, and they're always in chronological order. Just the moment you're born, boom, it stops right there. But we all have the signs in our chart. So again, and then they're making it very diluted signs, which making it easier for people to share about, without needing to do the studying, but then they're giving a lot of inaccurate information, or they're just speaking a lot of false information. That's all I can say, like false information. Because I know people like take it to heart, but I mean, if it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. I mean, I can produce a chart right now and show them, look, 12 houses, 12 zodiac signs. You have all of it in your chart. And I'll tell them someone that, oh, your Pisces is in the first house. I'm going to do your chart now. And there's like, oh my God, I need a minute because Pisces is in my first house and I don't have a good relationship with Pisces. Listen, zodiac signs are qualities. They're not personalities. And that's another way that it's being used over there as well, that they're giving personalities to these zodiac signs. Yes, you can take anything and personalize it. That's just a human thing, right? Like it's really easy for us to humanize and personalize anything. Like when we look at the suffering of animals, people don't associate it the same with the suffering of plants. Even though plants does not have enough consciousness to store that suffering, they still feel pain and they're still feeling the suffering. But because they don't have eyes, ears, and nose, we don't even think about them. You go ahead and you ride a bike down the street and you're killing millions of microorganisms. You don't think about them. But then you understand that it's just part of life, you know? So it's the same thing like when it comes to with the zodiac sign. People wake up, they become spiritual, then they're trying to like absorb as much as they can to their identity. And then that's where it becomes messy because they're like, okay, yeah, I'm a Virgo, I'm a Gemini. And then there's like, oh, it must be my moon this. And they break it down so bad that's the reason why every time when I'm starting to do a Vedic astrology reading, I never jump to telling them about their planets and their stars and this and that and nakshatras. I always go over their life foundation. It's a requirement. No matter which reading they want to do, they have to do a life foundation with me because they need to understand why their life has been operating the way it's been happening. And we go every single aspect of their life, themselves, the people, experiences, places they've been attracting, how they've been in society, how it's been with like their parents, like their childhood, everything. And that alone, just minimum 1 hour, just going over the life foundation. That's not even touching the planets or nakshatras or anything else, because there's just that much information there for an individual.
Going back to the planets, where do you stand on that? Like, my viewpoint on it is, or where I've gotten to with it, is that, okay, yes, they feel pain, like they say when you're cutting grass, that if you could actually pick up the frequencies, you can hear the grass crying, this kind of stuff. It's living. Of course, it's
yeah, anything living don't want to die, of course.
So, where I've reached is that it hasn't got a central nervous system, therefore, like, if I flick you or pinch you, it's your brain is... Your arm is sending a signal up to your brain, and then your brain is sending it back down, going, okay, this is something attacking us, we should feel pain. So it's a response that your brain is sending to the nervous system. The plants haven't got a central nervous system, so yes, they don't want to die, they want to live, but they're not feeling pain per se. But when we're talking about it, it's like, it seems hypocritical. It's like, if you want to be vegan because you don't want to kill any living thing, but eating plants is still killing living things.
Plants have not developed a muscle memory to store that pain in their system for you to consume. Animals have developed that muscle memory, along with seaweed and mushrooms. Mushrooms' DNA is very closely associated to ours. So they developed the muscle memory to store that pain, that suffering, that grief, that all the things that they could have lived in their life and they didn't get to live yet.
So it's a selfish
Plants does not have enough individual consciousness to be so aware of that pain, but they're still experiencing pain. But on top of that, it's not stored because they don't have the muscle memory to store that pain in their system.
So then it's from a selfish point that we don't want to eat the animal. Because when I first stopped eating meat, I did it from that point of view that, when we kill the animals, that the trauma, stress, pain, it's stored in their body. When we eat that, it goes into us. So it's a completely selfish reason. Is it then the same thing, that the plants aren't storing this stress, these negative emotions in them, so that's why it's better to eat them? Or is it more of a...
There's many different reasons why they're better to eat them. What I will say, anyone who's wanting to become vegetarian or vegan, they must have a spiritual practice, to some kind of what we call in Sanskrit sadhana, some kind of spiritual practice daily, in order for their body to go through that mutation. Whatever kriya or sadhana or spiritual practice doesn't mean as simple as you writing in your journal every day. Actual spiritual practice. If it's not from Hinduism, make it some other spiritual practice, Buddhism, whatever, in order for your body to adapt. Because if you don't do something for your body to adapt, then you'll see what happens to a lot of other people who get inspired. They go vegan or vegetarian and then they die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, get sick. And
if they're not capable, then they should continue eating what their body needs. Because the most important thing that's needed for a person's spiritual development is their body being healthy.
Yeah, like we were saying earlier, a few weeks ago, that everything is health. That we spoke about it yesterday, that you don't have business problems, you have life problems which are manifesting in your business.
If a person has any issue in their life, they should stop eating for the next 24 hours.
Where do you stand on fasting? Do you fast much?
It's hard to say that I fast, because for me, what someone else may consider as fasting is just a lifestyle for me. At one point I was only eating once a month for a whole year. Now we went through a process. I was put through a process where, as this body was put through that process, it required for me to eat once a day, and so now I am at the moment eating once a day. But the amount of food I eat is like one anjali, which is considered like this, with your palms together. So it's approximately the amount that I eat per day. And that's all I need.
Yeah, and you find if you reduce, because it sounds crazy thinking only eating once a day, but the less you eat...
You'll live longer too.
True, completely. But our stomachs are so inflated, and that if you go just hard switch to that, you're going to be starving, because your stomach, it's expanded.
Yeah, it'll take some time getting used to. It's always best to reduce, over time. Reduce. I mean, it can happen. The reduction can. The best way I would say the reduction can happen over time. The best way I would say is, if you want to just completely stop eating, then just go on liquids. Have liquid soups. Have smoothies, bean soups. Do that. So whenever you feel hungry, you're having liquids, and you're reducing the responsibility you're giving to your stomach to digest that food for you. And that way, it's less work for your body, and you'll get used to having more liquids, less solids. That would be the route I would say for people. That way, if they're really feeling like, oh my God, I really need to eat something, there's always going to be a 50% of people where they feel like, okay, I need to eat something, let me have some liquids. And then the other 50% are going to be like, let me sit and meditate on this hunger, and meditate on that hunger. There's always going to be the 50% of two. There's never going to be 100% where I'm going to expect people to just meditate on that hunger, or feel like they're going to feel happy after diving into or giving into the hunger. There's always going to be 50-50. So persons should just decide which one they want to do initially, and then go down that route.
Yeah. Have you done much water fasting?
I can't say that I have water fast. There has been times where I didn't feel like eating, and I drank water for a whole entire week straight, and it tasted like smoothie, and it was delicious. But the moment I tried to eat some cooked food, it immediately it was so fast, it just turned into poop in 15 minutes. Literally, sometime between 10-15 minutes. That's how fast my metabolism was. And then I was like, okay, maybe I not eat cooked food right now. I'll eat some fruits, and then that's when I was eating, one fruit a day, and yeah. But that's when all that mutation was happening. That we were getting that detox all the way down to our DNA level, in order for us to become immortal, in order to bring enlightened children as best as possible here on planet Earth and everything. So that's a little bit of that story of me going through all that mutation process when I was living as a sannyasi, as a brahmachari, as a monk, Hindu monk in India.
So do you see eating as slowly killing ourselves in a way, or
No, I would say eat when you're hungry. A lot of people eat for calories, protein, boredom, and entertainment and taste. People are not actually eating when they're hungry. And because they were conditioned when they were young, their parents telling them, okay, time to eat. You're not going to miss your meal, when the child is saying, I don't want to eat. And eventually now they're teaching that to their child. Oh, time to eat your breakfast, time to eat your lunch, time to eat your dinner. And the child doesn't want to eat. It's because they don't really need that much food. So there's a reason for that. And a lot of time people see it as, oh no, they got to eat because I want my child to be healthy, because they say that the child has to eat 3 times a day, otherwise they're going to be malnourished, and it doesn't work that way.
I've got a friend and his brother has a little girl, and she doesn't want to eat meat. She's tiny and she hates the taste of it. Every time they give it to her, she doesn't eat it. So they started like sneaking it in yogurt or in hidden ways so that she consumes it. And it's like, I heard it and I was like, oh my God, it's like in her natural state she didn't want it, but we're conditioned to think that the body needs it for protein to grow, etc.
Right, is that fear of, what something happens to my child? And then there's 2 fears that's set up purposely. One is the government will come after you and they'll take your child away for who knows what, human trafficking or whatever else. Or I love my child, I don't want them to be unhealthy. So those are the 2 fears. The government or guilt of not taking care of your child that you love.
It's funny, I see a lot of women who are pregnant on, I don't know if it's just because of the algorithm that I'm being tailored to, but I'm starting to see it a lot more now. People naturally going on a vegan diet or vegetarian diet while they are pregnant. And I don't know if the mood is switching, but you can see the negative impacts that's coming on. Not negative impacts, the negative, like, oh, the Bill Gates fake meat, and of course that stuff.
That's the thing. There's like vegan, vegetarian, and the name itself says veggies. It doesn't say anything about processed foods or fake meat. So then people put those things under that title and then excuse themselves for eating things that are also damaging their body. Oh, I didn't eat any meat, but you're eating something that's completely destroying your body. If it's GMO, pesticides, additives, preservatives, coloring, artificial flavoring, it is killing you. It is destroying you. It's targeting what exactly they want to target. Your reproductive system, your brain. Like, even if you look at like the brand Head and Shoulder shampoo, why is it that people who use shampoo in a modern society is losing hair, but you have homeless men who has all full out hair? If you look at Head and Shoulders, it has chemicals in it that specifically targets the brain and destroys the brain, but it's still on the shelves. But the moment someone says something towards some community online, they get attacked and they get arrested and then they go into jail.
Yeah, I've washed this hair 4 times ever, 4 times with shampoo, and it cleans itself. I've never had to.
Mine's I think I wash mine like every other month, sometime once a month, but every other month. Like, I would say like maybe like it's been like one every 2 to 3 months. And my scalp, my hair never smells. I never smell and never anything.
Yeah. I don't know. Are you a testament to it? Do I smell?
No.
Yeah, I don't know if it does look oily. But I
every time people look at my jettas, whether I'm in the U.S. or anywhere in the world, like, oh my God, you maintain it so well. You keep it so well. What do you do? I say nothing. That's literally my answer every time they ask me. How do you keep it so well and maintain? I do nothing. I let it do its thing, grow.
Yeah, well, at the minute we expose it to the shampoo, it strips the oil from the hair. Then the hair has to stops producing the oil itself. So then over time you just get trapped in the vicious cycle. And it's the same with everything. Like, we get ourselves trapped in these cycles by doing something initially. It's like when the people get into those mobility scooters. The moment they sit in that, they're then dooming themselves forever, because once you You don't use it, you lose it. Like once they stop moving, they then have to use that to move because their body stops.
Well, yeah, it's just like glasses.
Yeah, everything.
But it's also just like when the system, like when people get sick, it's just one out of many different ways to get people hooked into the matrix, because now they depend on the medication, or the medication creates more issues, and it makes it harder for them to even do simple things like live somewhere completely different because the medication is existed there, or so many different things. But I think the number one thing is there are a lot of people on this planet that are just generated to make the people who do exist feel like they're existing somewhere. But there are those people that, like if you look at every single star seed, there's always that at least one person in their life that tried to get in their way, or that was nagging them, or was trying to, or enemy, or whatever the case may be, sabotage them. And that's because when you land on this planet and you have very high potential to make a change here in the matrix, they come after you because they have to keep the balance. They can't have too much good happening. The more good, the more bad will increase to level it out. It's just natural. But that's where you need to learn how to protect yourself and how to manifest, because high vibration alone is not enough to protect you.
So do you see, going off what you said there, that say every reaction has a reaction, every cause has an effect, that there always has to be that balance in this reality, that all the negative stuff that's happening in the world right now is a result of a big push in positivity in a past time, that it's only a natural repercussion that if we had so much positivity that we have these wars, let's say, manifesting now?
That's one aspect. But then also they create a lot of wars, not only to make money, but they also create a lot of wars so that they can get people more separated. Yes, so whoever is not supporting one side, they're seen as, oh, I can't speak with you. And then
that's a different layer to it, that yes, that's coexisting, but the actual, that it was inevitable that if it wasn't a war, it would be some other kind of negative, let's say, that could be something else bad would have to happen because something so good has happened.
Again, from one aspect, because the other aspect, collectively, consciously, we're all manifesting that.
Yes. So did we collectively manifest something very good, so we pushed one end, so then the other end had to give way at some point?
Again, from one aspect, yes, but from another aspect, they know our capacity and ability to manifest, so they know how to strategically know what to put in people's faces in order to get the result they want via us. It's like they are creating it, but through us. Because we have the capacity. The ones that are doing all this, they're not human. It's a generational war. It's something where they have tons and tons and tons and tons of time to play chess. No matter how much you get done in this life, they're ready for your children and grandchildren, and that's where the aspect of spiritual war comes into play. It is a generational war. And then people ask, well, then what's the point of me doing anything good? Because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I like that situations and decisions now will have an impact on in the future, that it will ripple in today, tomorrow, the next day, and then it will also have ripples on. So that goes back to my last point, like, did we cause this ourselves because of previous things that we did, previous lives, previous generations, and it's just a natural unfolding of a decision that was already made? It might just be one decision, and that manifests this whole way in, let's say, what's happening in Gaza or this type of stuff.
For one aspect, yes. And the reason why I can't say that it's true 100%, because even from that way of thinking, they're really good with implanting negative mindsets on human beings, making pollution humans' fault. It's your fault. Um, Global warming, it's your fault. Why all the animals are dying, it's your fault. Why all the plants are dying or agricultural reserves are dying, it's your fault. And exactly, to keep them in a guilt, to keep them in this bind of feeling guilty of, and then they use the same strategy against the whole thing with vegans and non-vegans. And at the end of the day, everyone should just respect what their body needs in order to live healthy. No need to go on, make a whole movement and be like, everyone should be like this. It's not for everyone. And if people are going to adopt it, it needs some kind of spiritual practice. And the reason why they're also pushing it, like if you mention like Bill Gates, for example, is because there is an agenda behind that too. It's much cheaper to do crop than to maintain animals. So the more people become vegan and vegetarian, despite them not being able to live on it sustainably to sustain their health, it's cheaper for them because they're spending less money on us by just growing a bunch of crop, put the seeds and that. But then what that ends up doing in the future, it ends up making all of the soil on the planet, or a lot of the soil on the planet, infertile. So there's also an issue there. Exactly. It's very difficult to liberate a planet. And that's the reason why everything cannot be fixed block by block. Everything needs to be fixed as a whole in order for everything to change.
So do you see that something that we can do to mitigate the negativity that's happening in the world in other parts, these wars that are going on, can be done from the individual level, that we can do something ourselves?
Like even my guru said, he says, don't think that when you're doing yoga, you're just influencing yourself. No, when you're doing yoga, it's having an impact on the whole entire planet. It's having an impact on everyone. So the main thing that a person needs, and that's the reason why it's so nice in Hinduism, it's all self-indulging. But because we know how it impacts everyone else around us, even the person who looks at you and get a gaze of how much grace you're radiating, that immediately impacts them.
So that the microcosm impacts the macrocosm.
Exactly. Or also the entanglement effect as well. That whatever the person is experiencing, you're able to entangle with them in order to experience that too. Which is the whole other agenda of like celebrities and people that people admire and then entangle themselves with all these different things. But yeah, on a basic level, I think the conclusion of all this is that in order for a person to keep their vibration high, they should do a lot of things that makes them feel good. And that can be as simple as, like for me, I just got some lemongrass essential oil, and just multiple times throughout the day I just rub it, and I just rub it on my arm and I smell it, and it just smells so good. This song is really nice and soothing. Listen to that. Go ahead and play frisbee. Oh, go jump in the water. Like constantly doing things that are making you feel good. People a lot of times they have this like kind of mystical idea of like high vibration and low vibration. It's as simple as you feeling aligned to your day to day. It's as simple as you feeling just how you feel. If you feel really, really empowered and powerful and great, or if you feel really, really powerless.
Yeah, I found myself slipping into that trap of, okay, I want to feel something good, so we do as the condition thing, and let's go on a night out.
Yeah, even if a person do alcohol, I mean, it's called spirits for a reason. A person, when they're drinking spirits, alcohol, they're making themselves a vibrational compatibility with entities that are aligned with that vibration that person is putting themselves in. They feed off of that. It gives them access to certain parts of you.
Yeah, I remember when we got drunk a few weeks ago, I remember having multiple dreams the following week, or the days preceding, of some entity possessing me or stuff in the room, or like 3 dreams in a row of where I woke up feeling like something was.
The higher vibration a person is, the more closer they are to source, the more that person becomes a target for lower astral entities. That's the reason why babies are the most targeted, because they're the closest to source. So the higher vibration you are, the more you need to make sure that you're taking care of yourself and that you're protecting yourself and that you're keeping yourself in a high vibration.
Yeah. That way then it's a biological thing at the same time, that the less you drink, then the more it impacts you. but the less you drink, maybe the higher your vibration raises. So then, therefore, it's
You can find high vibrational ways to protect yourself rather than using things that are putting you into the illusion that you're protecting yourself or taking care of yourself.
peace out, people. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you for tuning in. Namaskar.